Welcome to my sewing room. When my boys were little, when they were really excited about something, they would say, "Oh, Mom, this is going to be super fun." Well, I'm going to tell you what, we're going to have a super fun show today. The theme of the show is one of everybody's favorites. It's called Applique. Let me show you a few of our special surprises we have to show you today. Cute little applique, little angels, and then it's stitched in "Joy to the world, the Lord has come," in a really cute Christmas apron. I especially like this really dressy little outfit done in black corduroy with a little pinafore bib and these cute little red cherries appliqued right here on the front. Absolutely adorable. And applique is so easy. Now then, what cuter place for little girls to put applique than right on the seat of a cute little pair of panties. You know what? You can wear these as a diaper cover also if you have a little baby. And you can put all kinds of applique right down to the little panties. This is a precious little corduroy vest. Once again, the little panda bears, absolutely adorable. And the little kites, which are the closures to the vest, are in what we call puffed applique. And a little bit later, we're going to show you about how to make puffed applique. This beautiful wreath to hang up at Christmas time with the appliqued holly leaves, two different kinds of applique, has the word joy appliqued onto it. And I will tell you the truth, applique to me is pure joy, and I just believe we have a very joyful show for you today. Now, come over to the technique boards with me, and we'll start our applique fun. Puffed applique is such an adorable applique technique. Today I have not one, but two different techniques for puffed applique. Okay, method number one. Trace your design onto iron-on stabilizer. Trace it on the paper side. Now then, apply that to the wrong side of the base fabric. Okay, step number two. All right, I'm going to lift up the design and the base fabric, and guess what I find underneath? The yellow fabric is the applique fabric. A little piece of batting, and then pull the other two down until I have 4 layers of fabric now. I'm going to do an open zigzag, a little skinny narrow one, all the way around the design, working from the stabilizer side. Let me show you what it looks like from the back. Okay, see, it went all the way through to the yellow piece too. Then I'm going to turn it over to the back and trim away. See, here's my little circle. I'm going to trim it all away. And my last step right down here is to come back and do an applique or a zigzag all the way around the little balloon. Now then, let me go to the second method, which is really very easy too. I trace the design onto the applique fabric, and then I have 2 layers of batting behind that. Okay, I'm going to zigzag all the way through all of those layers. Let me turn up and show you. Right through the batting, zigzag the whole balloon. Then come in and once again trim away all of the layers, so I just have this little round balloon. Then I take my little round balloon and put it on the base fabric and zigzag around it. Now let me show you a little trick. Do you see that I left that little area unzigzagged? Then if I want to, I can simply stuff a little more batting underneath there and make it even a fatter puffy applique. Come along with me to the sewing machine if you will, please. And I am delighted to have as my guest today one of the great applique artists of the whole United States of America, Louise Baird. Louise, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. I'm glad to be here. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about how to do the puffy or padded applique. On this sample, you can see that I have added really thick batting instead of a thin batting like we had before, to show you that it can be a thick batting and not too thin. So I've got my design on the iron-on stabilizer, batting, and my fabric, which is right side out. Then I stitch around my design with an open narrow zigzag, and then trim away the fabric, the excess fabric around my design, leaving just the shape. To do the applique, I've done this shape so that I can show you how to do curves, inside and outside curves. The machine is set up right now on an inside curve. when you do an applique on an inside curve, as you go around the design, you're going to have to pivot or leave your needle down in your fabric. If you have a needle down button, go ahead and place it in your control right now. When you pivot or turn, you want to leave the needle down on the outside of the curve. More on the outside of the curve, there's more area to cover than on the inside of the curve. So as I continue to go around here, the stitches need to stay perpendicular to the edge of the applique. So again, always leave it on the outside of the curve where there's more area to cover. Here, I'm approaching an outside curve. You can see now there's more area to cover on the right side instead of the left side. So that's where I would leave my needle down. Lift the foot slightly, pivot, and turn again. Always work so that the stitches are perpendicular to the edge of your design. If you should leave your needle down on the wrong side, what happens is you get a little V in your stitching, and also your stitches tend to get more at an angle instead of perpendicular to the edge of the machine. Sometimes on a gentle curve like this, you can continue to sew without having to stop to pivot. Whenever the curve gets more sharp, you will have to stop. Also, something that you might need to note here is that when you stitch, you need to cover the raw edge of the applique. It can't be left so that you have eyelashes on it. Okay, Martha?
Well, Louise, that's absolutely fascinating. The puffy applique technique is really one that is one of my favorites, and I thank you so much for sharing with us the methods on how to do it. Next, we have an absolutely adorable little doll dress, and this little doll has a happy birthday dress because she has balloons appliqued on her doll dress. I call this a happy birthday dress, and it just makes me happy when I see a little doll dressed in such a festive way. The details are absolutely wonderful on this dress. She has an entredot and lace neck trim. Now then, the little balloons, pink and purple and sort of a teal green, have a little ribbon that comes down below them. These are puffed applique that you've just learned how to do, and I'm going to show you once again. You see these little ribbons, aren't they adorable? And they come down, and here's a little silk ribbon, kind of a rosette here, and the little streamers. Now, another absolutely adorable detail on this dress. This is machine feather stitch in pink and teal and purple, which is on the bottom of the little dress. Also, let me go back up to her little sleeve and turn this around real slowly so you can see the little machine feather stitching once again, which travels all the way around her sleeve. Doesn't she look precious in her little balloon dress? Let me refresh your memory one more time on the little puffed balloons and little puffed applique. Okay. Step number one is to trace the circle off onto your fabric. In this case, it was the pink and the blue and the teal. And I have two little pieces of batting behind there. So that's one piece of batting, and one piece of balloon fabric. The next step is to do an applique, just a zigzag, open zigzag all the way around through all of those pieces of fabric, through the batting as well as through the fashion fabric. Next step toward making this little balloon is to simply trim away all three layers from around your little circle, which will later be the balloon. Now here is the bodice of the dress, so I take this little puffed applique piece with my batting behind here and the fabric, and I put it anywhere I want to and just pin it right on there. And then I'm going to need one more little piece of ribbon to come out with this little balloon, because these little pieces of ribbon are going to go over here for that little festive look with the puffed applique. By the way, the fabric for this little doll dress is a beautiful robin's egg blue Swiss batiste. Now, I really have a treat for you. I absolutely adore baby quilts and children's quilts. To me, it's one of the most exciting items to make in the whole sewing world. We have the most beautiful nursery rhyme baby quilt for you next. I think you're going to absolutely be tickled to death when you see it. This is my absolute favorite quilt, a nursery rhyme quilt. Let me show you the different blocks. First of all, Itsy Bitsy Spider. Moving over, Jack and Jill with her little lace on the bottom of her calico dress. Next is Jack Be Nimble, and actually Jack in this case is a little gray mouse, which I think is really cute. On this row we have Hey Diddle Diddle, Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock, and on over, Mary Had a Little Lamb. The next row, once again, 3 blind mice, and they have their cute little canes with little red tips on it. Moving over, Peter, Peter, Pumpkin Eater. And actually, Peter, Peter in this case is a mouse also. Patty Cake, Baker's Man, holding a birthday cake with 1 candle. And on the bottom row, there was an old lady who lived in a shoe. Moving over to the middle, Humpty Dumpty. And on over to the other side, London Bridge is falling down. The technique I would like to zero in for you is the little corner blocks right here, and these wonderful bright colors repeated throughout the quilt. Here we have orange and turquoise and brown and green, and it fits right in between the sashing pieces. And in order to show you those corner blocks, I have invited Louise Baird once again to show us how to do those corner blocks. Okay, Louise, I'm going to turn the corner blocks over to you since you made that wonderful quilt.
Okay, well, first of all, I'll sort of go from the beginning of the quilt, but this time instead of using applique blocks, just plain blocks. So I cut or tore 10.5-inch blocks, and then also strips that are 2 inches by 10.5 inches for the sashing. Stitch together the sashing to the top and the bottom of the blocks, and then make a long strip. Like this one is already stitched just to the bottom of the block, and then 2 blocks would be stitched together to make 1 longer row of blocks. On this one I have 3. On the quilt I had done 4. Now to do the corner blocks, which Martha was talking about, I just took 4 different colors of the sashing fabric, and I used the 2-inch strips. Instead of trying to cut them out right now, I just used the 2-inch strips. I stitched them together to make 2 sets, like this, and then stitched the 2 sets together with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And again, on this machine, on the FAF machine, you may need to adjust the needle position so that you get a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Now, since I didn't worry about using 1-inch strips, I just used the 2-inch strips. Now I need to cut my corner blocks down to match the rest of the sashing, which is 2 inches. So I marked it on my fabric, and then with a rotary cutter and mat, just go around it, and now I will be making my 2-inch corner block, which matches the rest of them. This piece of the sashing will be just added to the rest of the sashing to make a long strip, and then the longer strips are placed together to complete the quilt. And that's how easy it is to make it.
Oh, Louise, that added such a nice little touch in the corners of that adorable nursery rhyme quilt. Next we have for you another quilt square with an exciting technique. I think I have one of the most unique quilt squares that I have ever seen to share with you at this time. It is absolutely precious. Look at this. A blue silk dupioni quilt square with a little netting baby bonnet on it. Actually, it's just half a baby bonnet, but do you see how the little baby bonnet is stitched down? One of the techniques I think is especially pretty is the silk ribbon embroidery. The tiny little French knots and the little roses and the little pink roses and yellow and lavender and green that are used to stitch the little ruffle of the bonnet down. And then this unique, once again using silk ribbon, this unique little rosette, which is terribly easy to make, and it's a little secret I'm going to share with you in just a minute. The little pink ribbon rosette, and then we have this wide silk ribbon stitched down with little French knots. It's so easy to make. Here we go. Let me show you how. Actually, here is the little netting bonnet. Now, you can use, if you want to, you can just purchase a little baby bonnet, or if you have a family baby bonnet, which you would like to put into your quilt, you can simply stitch your own baby bonnet there. But if you would like to make one, here's how. The little netting bonnet, and actually this is a half bonnet, but looky here, I left a little area in between here to put your stuffing, to put the cotton stuffing. You make the little ruffle, you stuff it, and then you do all the little goodies on the edge. See, there's the little ruffle that's going to be sewn on later. Now then, you stitch, and I did this in black stitching so you can see it. You stitch all the trim, the little lace and the insertion, and then over here on this side, stitch it down with your silk ribbon embroidery. And by the way, the whole bonnet is stitched down simply using a zigzag going all the way around the bonnet. Now this is a cute little trick right here. To make that pretty rosette, I have used about an 1.5 inch wide silk ribbon, and I've run one row of gathering right down the middle. Now look, all I do is slip those gathers up, and do you see how pretty that silk ribbon is? You can just kind of twist it around and using a hand sewing needle stitch it down, and then I pull the ribbon down and put little French knots, and then twisted the ribbon over and put some more little French knots, and that completes this little baby bonnet on the silk dupioni square. Next, I have for you an absolutely precious Crazy Patch little baby pillow. This little Crazy Patch pillow done in heirloom sewing is an adaptation of one that I bought in an antique store in Sydney, Australia. I just love the technique. All right, this pillow is done in shades of blue and yellow and pink, and it's very unique in that it has 3 ruffles. It has one ruffle underneath the Crazy Patch piece, one ruffle on the pillow in between that and the edge ruffle, which is sewn on just like a regular ruffle. I'd like to review just a moment with you, if you will allow me to. I would like to review Crazy Patch, those of you that might have missed the Crazy Patch show. To do Crazy Patch, I begin with one 5-sided piece of fabric. Does not matter what kind of fabric or a piece of lace, just 5 sides, okay? I put it down on the center of my base fabric, which in this case is muslin. I take the next piece of fabric, put it down and stitch from one point to one point, the point at which the other fabric meets it underneath, and then I finger press it open. That is step number 2. Okay, I'm going to go to the next little square here, if I can get it apart. There we go. Next, I take, in this case, a pink piece of fabric. I put it down on top of those 2, open it up, and then I do the same thing with the green piece of fabric. I place it down, and then I press it open. And at this point, since the blue fabric is sticking out, I will need to come in there and clip away. I've already pre-clipped this. I come in there and clip away the fabric that is underneath. I continue all around going in clockwise or counterclockwise, it really doesn't matter, until I cover the whole area that needs to be covered, just stitching straight and finger pressing. Now that's a little refresher on the Crazy Patch. Here we go with that cute little pillow. The Crazy Patch section on this little pillow is the square right in the middle. So you see I have a square right in the middle made of Crazy Patch, absolutely elegant heirloom sewing Crazy Patch. And then the first ruffle goes right underneath that. The second ruffle, as you can see over here, the second ruffle is also attached to the top of the pillow. And the third ruffle goes in just like a regular ruffle. Next, I have a really sweet little craft for you. It's a little baby shoe pincushion. This is the cutest little pink dupioni silk pincushion I've ever seen. The pincushion is made out of silk dupioni. It has the silk ribbon roses on the front, a little bit of ecru lace, and here we've got the little pin sticking in it. It is very easy to make. The two pattern pieces that are actually involved in this is the base of the shoe right here, two pieces sewn together, and this is the top of the shoe, and this is the sole of the shoe right here. I guess I could turn that around. All right, after I sew those together, the top of the shoe looks exactly like this. Now, it's time now to do the silk ribbon embroidery on the front before the shoe is put together. After the shoe is put together, it looks like this. You've got the sole on the shoe. The next step is to turn the little shoe right side out. Doesn't take too long to do. See, the little silk ribbon embroidery is done on it. Now the next pattern piece that I have actually is to cut the silk dupioni that goes in the top of the shoe. But you know what? I have to stuff that little shoe first to make the pincushion part. So I take a little bit of batting and I stick it down in the toe and stuff it. Then I have a little more batting that is behind the piece that goes in the center. And I come in here and I stuff that all in. It takes just a little bit of time to make it really pretty. After I get it all stuffed in there, and I'll take a little bit more time when I'm actually making my little shoe, I come in with a little piece of the gathered French edging, and I stitch it on, and I stitch all of this together, and guess what? I have one of the sweetest little pincushions that I've ever seen, all ready to give as a gift to almost anyone on your list. I have something really special for you in Grandmother's attic. Well, I guess Grandmother, that's me. Martha's attic, Grandmother's trunk. Come on upstairs with me and let me show you something wonderful. Today, I have a perfectly beautiful christening dress to share with you. It has the most interesting lines to it. Let me just hold it up here where you can see. Starting from the top of the dress, do you notice the scoop neckline? That was very much popular around 1880 or before. Now, I'm going to just let you look traveling down the front of this dress. The center panel is put in diagonally, which is really very unusual. Do you see how it has tucks, Swiss edging, wonderful hand feather stitch, but it's all in on the diagonal. Now on the bottom of the dress there is a traditional straight panel with, once again, beautiful tucks, Swiss edging, and 3 rows of Swiss edging on the very bottom. An absolutely elegant christening dress which would be just as beautiful to use for a christening today as it was about 100 or more so years ago. I have a letter here for Sewing from the Heart from Alana Smith from Modesto, California. She says, everyone is familiar with shrine hospitals and the wonderful work Shriners do for crippled and burned children. Love for these children is further extended in the Shriners' Wives organization called Daughters of the Nile. We have sewing clubs devoted to making colorful examination gowns, bedclothes, quilts, pillows, and toys to brighten the children's stay at the hospital. Often during their recuperation, the children attend school in the hospital. We design and sew special outfits to fit over bandages, casts, and braces so they do not have to wear bedclothes to their classes. We are happy to sow a little sunshine in their recovery. And once again, that was from Alana Smith. Alana, thank you so much for writing to tell us of your wonderful work for the Shriners Hospitals. If you have a letter that you would like to write about some volunteer sewing that you're involved with, or your guild or a group of friends, please feel free to write us a short letter and tell us about your sewing from the heart. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room today. I've had a wonderful time, and I hope you have too. And I certainly hope that you will be able to join us next time.